Hey guys, it's Brian with Turp Mechanic. I keep a pretty good lawn. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. But I also garden. Over on my main Turp Mechanic channel, everybody knows me for my lawn care activities. But I want to go show you my garden. Follow with me. Crazy mower. All right, so here's the entrance. You can also get in through the back. I have manually, like with shovels, there's my shovels. I have manually excavated this whole area to remove as much stuff, like unwanted grasses, kikuyu grass, Bermuda grass, weeds. We're talking 2.5 years or so. I'm constantly back here digging, pulling stuff out of the ground. This is actually the remnants of an aloe vera plant that we used to have. I gotta pay attention to how I point here, but under this is a avocado plant. There used to be a huge overgrown aloe vera plant over there. So we removed it, but we kept cuttings, and it is still growing right here. 2.5 years later, it's still going. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that there long term, but I didn't want to get rid of the plant totally. And so I'm just limping it along as it continues to go. But point here is, in a garden scenario, I don't use any herbicides whatsoever. And for 2.5 years here in Southern California, it has been very difficult to get rid of all of this crazy kikuyu grass and Bermuda grass from this space. Zoom out a little bit, without using any herbicides. I've gotten there pretty good. But there's, the fringe areas I haven't gotten to it yet. So, when we moved in, there were these plants all over the place. These are, let me recall here, 4 o'clock flowers. And they're essentially annuals, but in my climate, they don't necessarily have to be an annual. They can keep going, but they all make seeds. And like if you look in here, so this flower hasn't closed up yet. They usually close during the day. But as you see in here, that's a seed. So it just drops the seeds on the ground, and then they repopulate. And, if they start growing in a place that I don't want, then I just pull it out of the ground. If I'm okay with it being there, then it just stays there. This one in particular just started growing there, so I allowed it to happen. But notice that this ground right there is not, I don't know, it's underneath a fence. This is not like a nice garden bed. The same thing happened over here at about the same time. So this is also the same plant. It's a different color, but it's the same plant. It's huge. Very beautiful. Everything is closing up on themselves because we're in the middle of the daytime. But it's the same plant grown at the same time of year from the same seed that was dropped prior. And it's in a garden bed, so it's amended. It's not compacted soil. Obviously, it's doing way, way better. And it's kind of overtaking everything that I am wanting to grow. So over here next to it, I've got some zucchini plants. I got a second zucchini plant here. We go through a lot of zucchini in the house. In years past, in our gardens, we've maintained zucchini plants. They get huge. And this is the first time I've planted zucchini in our current garden since we moved in. Really, we were forced to take some time off of gardening because we just didn't have the space prepared to garden. So we had to redo our fence line to keep the dogs away, and I had to get rid of all of the native grasses that we're trying to grow, install garden beds and whatnot. Over here, this is also a little cherry tomato plant. That is actually a volunteer from last year's tomatoes that we grew. I may or may not have some footage of those plants, but sometimes those tomatoes drop and they drop their seeds and then they just start growing again the next season. And that's exactly what happened here. I didn't plant this. It just came in. So we've already got some cherry tomatoes started, and we got some flowering going on up here. I got my stake in the ground, so I'm going to keep training it to go high so it can get over the top of this 4 o'clock flower. And these tomatoes end up being the same tomatoes as these over here. Little do some people know, but tomato plants are not necessarily annuals. This tomato plant, all gangly and crazy here at the bottom, is remnants of the tomato plant that we were growing last year. This is more than 12 months old. I want to say we planted this plant from seed 16 months ago, maybe. And the base of it is way down there. It eventually, we trained it to go up this stake. It went about 10 feet into the air. And then we had a windstorm last fall, and it broke up top because it was just so tall. I mean, look at that. That's a monster. Kind of expected the plant to die, but it started, it kept going down here at the sprout, and now it's still going. And if you pop one of these guys off, oops, I dropped it. If you pop one of these guys off, this is pretty much the tastiest cherry tomato I've ever put in my mouth. But anyway, so that's still going. So recently I've started pulling up, well, I've only done one, but the plan is to pull up a handful more of these and start restaking them and just see how long this plant keeps going, because as you can see, it's making more tomatoes than we can go through. Every single time the kids come out here, I tell them to grab an orange tomato, pop it in their mouth. We call them tomato bombs because they explode in your mouth with like juicy tomato goodness. So anyway, that's our old tomato plant. Back in like January, I started making some tomato videos for this Tropicanic Gardens channel. Excuse me while I swallow. I was making those videos to attempt, drop my seed down there. We'll get a flower there next year. Yeah, back in January, I started making some videos about growing tomatoes from seed. We've done it many times, many years in a row. This year, I started doing it in January for the purpose of making videos. I did kind of want to see if I could get them out into the garden, but for the purpose of making videos ahead of the season, none of those plants lasted. Like, it just took way too long for the garden to be ready for us to put them in. So, had I been able to do that, we'd have some extremely mature tomato plants. But since then, maybe about 3-4 weeks ago, we got these going. Nothing to call home to mom about quite yet, but we've got 2 tomato plants coming in. This is what we would call, or not a volunteer. This is the offshoot that comes off of the main stem. Some people cut that off. We tend to cut it off. This is what it looks like when it's baby, and you pluck that off. Otherwise, it keeps growing and it becomes something like this. So if you keep that first one or maybe the second one going, you can end up having a double stem. If you take this off and then it's just a single stem going up. That's what we did here initially. Although I guess maybe we did have a double stem on that one. That's why it kept going. Who knows? Who really knows? So we're going to double stem this one going up. Instead of having like 4 or 5 tomato plants in here, we'll end up having 2 tomato plants in here, but we'll have 2 stems coming up on each one. So it almost feels like there's going to be 4 tomato plants. But each one of those we're going to be having to maintain and prune. Here, this is something that I just picked up from a store because I don't have seeds. This is a Mexican zucchini plant. I like using the Mexican zucchinis in some of our cooking as opposed to regular zucchinis. I think they hold up better in soups. That's just me personally. I feel like that. So these zucchini plants, as you notice, I've given them a lot of space because as they mature, they do get pretty big. Here, this is one of my most magnificent dandelions that I've ever grown on accident. Like I said, I don't use herbicides over here or pre-emergence over here. So these things come in from time to time. This thing is huge. And it's trying to make babies. This grapevine, when we moved into this house 2.5 years ago, this grapevine was unbelievable. We've got our main stem here, or trunk, coming up. The fence used to go through the trunk, and we've moved the fence about 2 feet that way, 1.5 feet that way, to keep it parallel with the lawn. And I don't know, it gave us just a hair more space over here in the garden. But we cut this tomato plant. There's a butterfly. I don't know if you saw them. These flowers, by the way, they attract sphinx moths, which kind of have like a long tongue, proboscis, that can go down in there to get the nectar, just like a hummingbird. So like a hummingbird. So they don't really attract bees or butterflies, but hummingbirds and big fancy moths. Anyway, back to the grapes. This thing was cut. We ended up cutting it back because it went up huge over the top of this rounded top thing with bench seating underneath. And it was like trying to eat it. It was so big, gangly. So we ended up cutting it back almost to the stump. We cut it to about here, and it was just a stump. And we weren't sure if we had really killed it. I know in commercial settings, they cut their grapevines back enormously all of the time, or annually, and then they come back. Well, this is what happened. We cut it all the way back. There was no leaves, no foliage, no stems, nothing, just a trunk. And within 12 months, we've got one grapevine coming up, and it's spreading all the way over here. It's starting to spread onto the fence. I'm going to make like a little trellis of some kind on the fence for it to keep going, and then it's going this way. And we occasionally have to pluck it back so that it's not coming over these garden beds. But eventually it'll probably get to the gate and we'll just have to stop it. But it makes a ton, absolute ton of grapes. So this one is almost ready, but I can eat it. Fantastic. But for whatever reason, all the grapes on this side are maturing much faster. So as you see in here, I need to just pull these things off totally. But these are completely, oh man, those firm and ripe. Spectacular. Kids and I come out here. My wife comes out here during the weekends, during the daytime. We pull off huge things. I mean, we could pull off something like this every couple days. And even the green ones down there are edible. But if we pull something like this off every couple days, we pretty much never not have grapes. Does that make sense? We always have grapes. We never have to buy them. And I don't do anything to this except for the end of the year, we'll cut all of this stuff back. So like this, the stems, you just cut it right back over towards the stump and it all regrows again. So very, very cool. We are really going overboard on how many grapes we've got. So I got to start giving these things away. Look at that. It's popping. It can't even sustain itself. I need to give it more water and prune this thing back. Harvest. Here, this is one of the newest additions to the garden. This is the last garden bed that I've made. So I've physically put in like hundreds of hours into excavating this ground because it's Bermuda and kikuyu grass. They all have rhizomes that are deep underground. So if you go down here, I have to dig deep into the ground to pull out that stuff. I sift it out. My holding tank's over here. I put the dirt over here. I sift out all of the rhizomes and things underground. I let them dry out. I let them die. I sift them out, and then I put them back into the bed, and then I let the bed sit here for a long time to kill off as much of this stuff as possible. And then I move the dirt back over here, and I sift it, and then I move it back, and I amend it, typically with various forms of compost and worm castings, and then eventually it's ready. Doing all of this by hand, manually, without just bringing in, removing the dirt totally and bringing in brand spanking new dirt is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, but it is gratifying. So this right here is a watermelon plant, brand new bed. We've grown watermelon in Oregon before. It worked out pretty good, but the season was so short. This year, I wasn't sure if I was going to use this bed, but I figured I would try to see if I could use it. Currently, I've had to, pull back the mulch, pull out some, random Bermuda grass that's been starting to try to grow up in there. I think I've got it clean. But because we're in almost mid-July right now, I went and I bought, even though I got watermelon seed in the garage, I went out and I bought one of these watermelon jubilees from the store, got it in there. I don't know how long it's going to grow based on the season. It needs like hot weather, and planting it in July, we're probably going to have hot weather into October, November even, but I don't really know. So I just wanted to put something in here as a trial. Oddly enough, last year, 12 months ago, we actually had more stuff growing in the garden. This year, I've done a lot of work just excavating out, and you see like this right here, I excavated all of this out to get Bermuda, but I haven't gotten it all. So I'm going to have to go and pull all this mulch back, and I'll have to try to dig all of this extra Bermuda out of the ground. Because if I don't, it's going to continue growing in all directions, and eventually it'll grow under and start growing into this. And that's what I don't want. So I got a little bit here, a little bit over here. It's all the newer areas of the garden beds. When you excavate by hand, trying to get rid of this stuff, you got to take your time. Like, you do it as good as you possibly can, and then months later, you're going to have to come back and continue making it better. It's one of those incremental improvement things that I talk about all the time on the YouTube channels. This bed right here is basically my herb garden. We've got thyme, tarragon, we got oregano. These are some bell pepper plants that I transplanted. Those we grew from seed last year. They used to be in a bed over there. I dug them up. I brought them over here. They're starting to come back a little bit. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but there's a jalapeno right there. So it is working. And then there's some little baby flowers in there. So, oh, that little baby. The littlest jalapeno ever. Same thing over here. This is a bell pepper, obviously jalapeno plant. You can tell the difference in the leaves. This is funny. We've got a handful of these out here. This is called a polka dot plant. It looks really dry right now, but polka dot plant is usually known as a house plant. So we've got one there just for interest. My wife bought some, put them out here because we had space to fill. And for right now, we've got polka dot plant there. We've got a different polka dot plant here. They don't really flower. I mean, there are technical flowers in there, but you're never really going to look at it and think that's a flower. It just looks like a visual piece that fills space. It doesn't even really bring pollinators over. So it's just kind of filling space and looks nice. This is a different kind of a polka dot plant. This one doesn't look like it's doing as good because I haven't really watered this bed right here. Plus, I also backfilled this bed. So every time this is the first bed that I made. So you put all the dirt in, and then 12 months later, the dirt level is like way lower. So it settles down. It's not exactly compacted, but it does settle down. So I ended up backfilling extra dirt into it. Here's a pepper plant. Technically, I backfilled everything, but then it kind of tapers down because I didn't want to like bury the trunk of this. This is another pepper plant that we transplanted from last year. It's not doing as good, but I might just get rid of it. This whole bed is under full renovation. Like, I'm just redoing this whole bed. And for the time being, I just haven't uprooted the stuff. Brussels sprouts. Next time I do Brussels sprouts, my wife and I will probably trellis this up because these things get huge and weighty. Like, if I were to reach in here and just try to push it, like, it doesn't even want to push. Little tiny baby Brussels sprouts at the top. At the bottom, we've got good ones. We've actually harvested some off this already. Ate them for dinner. Delicious. This plant right here is another Brussels sprout plant. It almost died on us a while ago because of bugs and not getting as much water as the other one, I guess. So you can tell the difference. We haven't harvested any Brussels sprouts on this one. Look how tiny they are, and there's little bugs crawling around on them. Learning how to do Brussels sprouts. Over here, this is I said the watermelon this was like 2 days ago. I brought my kids out here. I'm trying to teach them succession planting. So this is another bed. I actually just about a week ago removed maybe 2 weeks ago, I removed everything out of this bed, dug everything back up, added extra soil to bring the level up, put new fresh mulch onto it, let it sit for a couple of weeks to see if any weeds started popping. None of them have been popping. So the other day, my kids and I decided to come over here and throw some lines into the dirt, and we put radishes in. Radishes are like some of the fastest vegetables you could possibly grow. So instead of planting a whole bed of radishes, because the radishes are supposed to be done in about 3.5 weeks, I decided to start teaching them about succession planting. So we'll plant these, and then 5 days later, we'll plant 2 more rows. 7-10 days later, we'll do a couple more rows, and then eventually these are ready to harvest. And after we harvest, then we put new seeds there. So we're constantly harvesting, 20 radishes every week or so. That's the plan. It's just a good way of teaching the kids. Right now things are drying out, so I got to get some more water on them. I wish I could say that I grew this from scratch, but this avocado tree was here in the house when we moved in a couple years ago. I've pruned it a little bit to be less imposing on the property or on the garden space here. What time of year is it? It's July 10th, 11th right now. And I don't see any new avocados growing quite yet. They do. So all of the avocados that came in last year came in the fall, and they were like, I have never purchased an avocado at a grocery store that tasted as good as these avocados. Like ever. Like, it's crazy. Just imagine the best avocado you ever had and then multiply it by 10. It doesn't even make sense. So I'm looking forward to these coming back in. We've got pomegranates up here in this tree. There's a baby coming in, hasn't gotten his color yet. My older daughter loves pomegranates. In fact, she came up with an idea a while ago to make her own YouTube channel all about pomegranates. That was a 1 day long idea. Because pomegranates are so challenging, messy, and difficult for a child to process. They're hard for me to process, but she loves them. So we have cut this tree back quite a bit, but if you have any experience with a pomegranate tree, shrub, whatever you want to call it, these things grow like weeds. So last year, I think we cut it like right there, and then it's all come back, and we pruned it back again anyway. And right now we've got so many pomegranates and new growth on this, the whole tree is starting to sag again. So trying to figure out the best way to maintain a good tree for my daughter that doesn't become too gangly. I have to prune the bottom so much, so often, because it'll just bush out everywhere. Goes nuts. They are delicious though. Our oranges over here, we got our orange trees. Our smaller orange tree didn't make any oranges last year, but it is growing some right now. Yeah, there we go. This one is a prolific. I mean, there's tons of them. At some point, I might even have to thin it out. But here's a couple oranges from last year. Boom. Well, this one was eaten out. But the oranges that this makes, the kids, I mean, for one, they're amazing. They do taste good. Very, very sweet. Very good. We like to bring these in maybe like 20, 25 at a time and juice them. And we make our own fresh orange juice out of it. Again, this is another project that I do with the kids inside. And they are usually the instigators. They usually come to me and say, Dad, let's go get some oranges and make orange juice. And I am game for that every single time. And then they sit on the ground and they crush. Most of the time I just leave them in the ground, unless they're really fresh and actually rotting. But anyway, that's the garden for right now. If you're curious, as I dig all this out, I use the dirt to bring back in here. It's amended, but that's what brings the level down. And to mulch it back down, I've been using this stuff. This is garden straw. And this is really good because I use this stuff specifically because it is weed-free, ideal for edible gardens. And when my kids walk on it barefoot, it doesn't give them any splinters. So this stuff does not irritate skin in our family at all. And once it settles down, it kind of stays there even when the wind hits. But right now there's a fresh coat on there, so it hasn't quite compacted down yet everywhere. But we're getting there. This is what it kind of looks like later after it's compacted down. But it does really good. Mulch. I've been buying cedar shavings from my local garden store and using that. I like it because it's got a different texture, like it's harder, chunkier, fibrous, so it doesn't blend in with the dirt so much. So like if I want to clear this bed of mulch, I can drag everything off to the side, dig in the dirt, and then drag all the mulch back. And it doesn't feel like it incorporates back together. Like it's not like I'm mixing it together. Over the past couple months, I've done a lot of work over here, clearing this whole area out. Let me move into the shade so you can actually see it. But we've been stringing up lights. I've got a work table here that's just a big old mess right now, mostly because I'm in organization mode. But I've flattened this whole area out. I'm not sure. The kids are asking me to put grass back here. My wife is asking me to put like a path, like a walking path with like, paver stones. And I'm considering doing more and more of the mulch. So I might do a trio or a hybrid. I'm not sure 100%, but we need to have a path that's not mud. So during like January, this is just mud because it's the rainy season. So I can't just have bare dirt. But having bare dirt, it makes it really easy to find things like, that, whatever that is, and get it out of the ground. Because I don't want stuff growing back here. We had our old fence. You can see the line here. When we moved into the house, the fence stopped here and went across. We didn't have a door here. So one of the first things that we did after moving in is we extended the fence around and put a door in over there. So it'd be nice to clean that up. But anyway, because of the fence, there's like cement. So I dug out a big old cement fence post holder-upper from the ground right there. It took me forever. It was the most substantial fence post foundation I've ever dug up. There's another one right here under this dirt. Maybe I'll dig it up. Maybe I'll just ignore it. But if I can get some grass growing in here or some mulch or maybe a little bit of grass, a little bit of mulch, a little bit of a path, something like that, to make this more of an attractive thing. And then over the next week and a half, this area right here, I'm going to be moving one of the garden beds, possibly up against the wall here. Up against the wall here. And I'm going to build from scratch, from wood, a sandbox for my youngest kids who are asking for a sandbox. We've always had sandboxes in our house, in previous houses. I've never put one in here. They're asking for it. So that's going to go in here. And it will probably be temporary for the next couple years until the kids get a little bit older. Then with a sandbox, you can remove it fairly easily and then repurpose the space. But I got to give them, when kids want to be outside playing, I want to give them a safe space. Every single time, I want to give them a comfortable space and something that they actually want to play on. So that's just how I operate. This is our bounce house. So every now and then, maybe about 5-6 times a year for special occasions, we pull the bounce house out, and it has like a water slide, and I need to find a good storage spot for that. That's the garden for now. As always, I'm poor about this, but I want to make dedicated garden content. I do have Tropicana Gardens YouTube channel. If you subscribe, there will be videos coming out periodically, occasionally. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it will happen more frequently over the course of the future because it's not all about the lawn. We got butterflies and bees, and I haven't even talked about the garden stuff in the front. So maybe I'll save that for a lawn video. But we've got pollinators under the sun. I'm still waiting to see if we can find a hummingbird. I haven't seen a hummingbird hit the lawn yet, but fingers crossed, maybe it'll happen in the future. Thanks for watching.